Week 7 NFL DFS is going to be answered by one question. How many points are actually scored in Dallas and Washington? The only game with a total over 50, 54.5, I believe, is the highest total for a game we've seen in the regular season. I believe there was a Patriots Packers game, Jacob. This really actually might be before your time of doing
Okay.
content. That was 53.5. That was Rodgers versus Brady. This would have been like
Wow.
2017 or so. That's the
All right.
last time I remember one this high. But we can begin with a much more boring game. The Philadelphia Eagles traveling to play at the Minnesota Vikings. Really, this is the only question I have for you. Do you think JJ McCarthy starts this game? And do you expect him to play better than we saw him play against the Atlanta Falcons?
I don't know, and I don't know. Like if I had to guess, I think it's Wentz for one more week, but
I
I
agree.
don't know for sure. And I think I don't know about play better, like from a real life perspective, but I think if you wanted to play Justin Jefferson in daily fantasy sports, that you're hoping for Carson Wentz. I do believe that.
I think you're probably right. Let me defend JJ McCarthy here for a small period of time. The Falcons defense way better than we thought, right? The Falcons defense,
Yep.
everyone's laughing at them because they got dunked on by the Panthers in a game they actually gained more yards and first downs than the Carolina Panthers did. Josh Allen looked like shit against them. Like actually like one of the worst games Josh Allen has played in many, many years against the Atlanta Falcons. JJ McCarthy had just had a child before his second ever NFL start. He got 1 day of practice in. As someone who's also about to have a child, I'm guessing he probably did not get very much sleep in that week. It sounds like I'm being facetious, but I am actually being serious about this. And he did like legitimately get injured. That also is part of it too. Like he actually did get everyone loves the soft benching stuff, but his ankle is actually banged up. I think obviously regardless if Wentz or if McCarthy starts in this game, we should feel, I think, pretty enthused about playing Justin Jefferson at $7,600. I think he probably remains. I mean, he's basically the best wide receiver in the NFL, given the level of his quarterback play the last 2 years. But I remain, if we're putting it on a political aisle, I remain much more pro JJ McCarthy than the layperson.
Yeah, I'm probably on the anti side, but I won't. I'm open minded to the idea that he could be good for sure, but I'm pretty alarmed by what I saw in the first 2 games. Um, I think the Jefferson's in play regardless. I would bet that his ownership is higher with Wentz, marginally so, and I would be willing to eat that extra ownership. I think. I mean, it's an interesting slate. First of all, there's only like 3 expensive wide receivers on the whole slate, and then one of them is Lamb, who's coming off an injury, and another one is Pickens, who probably I don't think is going to be in a weird spot because he's not really a $7,300 wide receiver with CD Lamb, but um, but he's in this incredible game environment. Anyway, we'll get to that one. But the point is that if you do want to spend up at wide receiver this week, outside of that, the 2 Dallas guys, it is Justin Jefferson. So I wonder if that means he maybe just gets more owned than he actually should because he's kind of the default option in his range. But we'll see. He's certainly in play. Outside of that, this game's not for me, dog. I don't know. It's not. It doesn't seem that fun. Mason, I guess.
$5,800 AJ Brown.
Yeah,
$5,800 AJ
yeah. I
Brown.
would do that.
I'm a
Yeah,
little
I'll do that.
I'm a little intrigued by that. I'm not
Yes.
intrigued by $4,500 Dallas Goedert, who is basically Taysom Hill now. I know he was Julian Edelman for the first half of that game against the Giants, but like more or less, it's either he gets his stupid. I hate this play. The Dallas Goedert shuffle pass touchdown is one of my least favorite plays in NFL. We can't throw a shuffle pass to AJ Brown. We can't let AJ Brown just like feel happy about his existence. It's a huge bummer. All right, a game I actually am relatively interested
Sims are
in.
probably gonna love like a Hurts to AJ Brown, right? With 5,800,
He
I
just
bet.
doesn't project that well. He's going to project for like 12 points, AJ Brown. So I don't know if he will sim out all that great. The New Orleans
Why is his
Saints,
projection that bad? Like his target share has been really good since week 3. Their pass rate's been high the last 2 weeks. I'm curious why he sims so poorly.
I'm going to guess in our default stuff, I'm going to guess that the Philadelphia Eagles with a 54.6% rush rate, which would be, I bet that's higher than the Jets.
So basically you're just saying the last 2 weeks of pass rate doesn't exist.
It is higher than the Jets by 0.5 percentage points. I don't think it's that. I would assume that these rates have not been manually messed with at all. These are just going to be like a rolling average rate. And also there's like historical stuff that goes into it that feeds in from
Okay.
like the spread and all that stuff inside of the code that runs on Run the Sims. And you would have to make a pretty big manual adjustment to get road favorite Jalen Hurts team
Yeah.
to a neutral
They're not
passing
winning
rate.
this game. So that all right. I'm gonna play a lot of AJ Brown then because I'm buying that they
Want to throw
are
the ball.
making a meaningful, maybe not want to throw the ball, but can't run the ball. Um,
Yes.
and I also think that the Vikings are gonna win this game. So I'm probably gonna manually adjust AJ up in
Yeah.
the Sims
Which I think is
and Devonta.
I think that's a totally rational thing to do. I think it's a smart way to approach these games. One of the easiest ways to make better lineups is to be more accurate on the projection. We have the battle of former college teammates at the University of Oklahoma, Caleb Williams versus Spencer Rattler.
Yeah,
47 total here, which is the third highest total of the slate. The Saints not in the dome in Soldier Field against the Bears. Really into Caleb Williams in this spot. I'm also marginally interested in $4,800 Rattler against this Bears defense. He has at least 4
I
rushing
am too.
attempts in all games but one. And I do like that Kellen Moore has kind of taken the governor off in terms of letting him toss a couple deep shots like 3 or 4 times a game. Like, just like, all right, man, Shahid's out there, and if you hit him, you hit him, or Olave's out there. If you hit him, you hit him, which I think has been intelligent from Kellen Moore. I like Rome. I know there's no chance you're going to be into $5,200 DJ Moore, who it sounds like the injury he had was testicular
Enough
torsion.
already.
Believe he led them in targets last game, DJ Moore.
He had 5 targets though, so
Well, theoretically, I mean, you got to do what you do. And then Rashid Shaheed at 4,500, and I think we can say goodbye to Juwan Johnson as a big fantasy football entity. What do you have on this game?
Yeah, I have weird dreams. I guess I think about football too much. I dreamt that Jawan Johnson was out for the year and that I had to come on this program and hear you talk about Taysom Hill's route rate in the event of a season-ending Jawan Johnson injury. So I don't know like why I'm dreaming about that. I don't know why I'm spending my hours at 4:30 a.m. thinking of Davis being like, well, with Jawan Johnson out, Taysom Hill's gonna run 62% of the routes. But that's where I'm at. And I'm like, actually, Foster Moreau might run more routes. Anyway, yeah, it's Jawan is seemingly. I don't even think it's a Taysom thing because Taysom's not really doing tight end stuff, but it seems like
Not
it's a
yet.
mix of like a. It's not. It seems like a mix of like a Foster Moreau thing / a just like Rashid Shaheed is actually the number 2 option thing /
It's
a
more
we're gonna run the ball
Shaheed.
more thing. Like it's a combination of different things.
In my mind, it's more that Shaheed is being a real wide receiver this season. So there's like less like 6 target games for a third option to go around. Like if Rashid Shaheed is routinely going to be getting 8 targets in a game, there's just less meat on the bone for a very average
Yeah.
tight end.
Because early in the season, Jawan looked like he was the second option, and Rashid looked like the third option, and then that's kind of flipped now the last couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
they also just are running the ball more as they've gotten Kendre more involved. So that kind of hurts the pie for everybody, at least who's not Chris Olave. Yeah, Olave is a great play. I'm like semi-intrigued about Alvin Kamara in a really good matchup, especially because there's a lot of kind of sexier names in that 6K range. So Kamara's going to be like 2% owned in small field contests, I think. So I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I just noted that as a guy who's kind of in my player pool. He's still playing 60 to 70% of the snaps. He still sees all of the running back receiving work. It's just that the Cadre's taking some carries, and you have Taysom problems that I think have the vibes really low, reasonably. If DJ Moore does not play, which I don't know at this point on Thursday morning, then like what percentage owned is Luther Burden the Spy?
Oh goodness,
And,
so high.
and the more interesting question is how much higher owned in the Spy is Luther Burden than in the Millie?
Than in the Millie. Yeah. I like yes, like truly like preposterous degrees. I mean, he is 4,300. We're gonna get there obviously to the Kansas City Chiefs, but one of the things that might save him from being like 57% owned would be that there's going to be another wide receiver who is 60% owned in the context of this slate. Although it does start to get to the point of like you could just lock you could lock Romadunze, Xavier Worthy, and then just run your top 150 set and just put that in your contest of choice, and you're going to have unique teams in there because those combinations, because the combo of Burden and Rice will be so high. Do you have any interest in Swift?
I mean, you looked really good last week. It's funny enough, it was like I had to completely change the whole segment. I mean, for the first 3 quarters, most of what I was prepared to write was like, oh, his role stinks now. They've gotten Monangai more involved. They're even using Roschon a little bit. And then he just turned it on in the fourth quarter. I love the way that they've kind of retooled their run scheme, where they're using him more on the edge. Everything's behind Darnell Wright, who's a monster. And that's using Swift's actual strengths as a runner. You know, they didn't ask him to do a lot between the tackles on that Monday night game. A lot of it was those toss plays, wide zone plays around the edge. It was really cool. We'll see what the ownership is. People tend to not like playing Swift. Maybe off a good game that changes, but I kind of doubt it.
No one likes this guy.
We'll see. There's like the 2 guys in the really good matchups that we'll get to in a similar price range that I really want to play. And if Swift is similar owned to those guys, I'm going to play them. But if he comes in way lower, I'll probably want to get on Swift. So similar to what I said about Kamara, I think that they're guys that probably maybe go a little under the radar. I'm interested in both. And I like Swift probably a little bit more than Kamara because he has more touchdown equity.
Yeah. I think you're right there. All right, let's move on now to the New England Patriots at the Tennessee Titans. Frankly, no Titan is playable. I am just hoping beyond hope. Well, this is an early game, so we actually are not going to have to deal with the Titans for the Shipcast. There's going to be no Alec Manor. There's going to be no Cam Ward discussion on the Shipcast this week. Really, the only interesting thing about this game is, will Mike Vrabel run the score up against his old team? Will he be having? Will Drake May be throwing 60-yard bombs to Kayshon Boutte in the fourth quarter up 20 points? Because if so, Drake May becomes much more appealing. I think Ramondre at 5,200, like he just subsumed all of the leftover Antonio Gibson last work. Trevion Henderson, really no meaningful change in his role at all. What say you about the Patriots?
Well, one guy I'm going to play this week. I was on with Neil and Jake doing the cage match last night. I did him in my player picks for Dynasty points this week. Ramondre Stevenson is going to be an early gold star play contender for me. Based on the reaction of people that I brought it up to, I don't even think he's going to be that high owned. But we're talking about a 70% snap rate running back at $5,200 in a game that they could easily win by 2 to 3 touchdowns. I get that they have not ran the ball very well at all this year, and are not throwing to the backs all that much. But that stuff can be sequencing to a degree, and I think Stevenson's in a really, really interesting spot here. I wish that we saw more signs of life last week from Trevion Henderson. I would have loved to get in on him as the play it before you see it guy. But if they're both going to be low owned and they're both going to be cheap, I probably would just rather play Stevenson. And I think any sort of May stack is definitely in play. They've had a high pass rate the last few weeks. Their pass blocking grade is like really, really good. Their run blocking grade is horrible. It seems like they're leaning into that. So I think, May plus whomever. The only difficulty with playing May this year is just that there's no real consistent option. Like Diggs is the best
I,
one.
I would I
He
would
had
play
the
him
spike
naked.
week.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
play him unstacked.
Yeah, because like of the wide receivers, I mean, Diggs is the one you'd want to play, but he has been very inconsistent, and his route rate is still not very good. Henry's kind of expensive now, up at 4,100, so that doesn't really appetize me. So I'm inclined to agree. I think if you wanted to play May this week, your move is you play naked May, and then you loop in some wide receivers from some of the more fun games on the slate that we'll get to, and you just hope that the quarterbacks, in those games don't get to like 20, but May runs 1 or 2 in.
Yeah. I mean, he can get 30 points if he scores a rushing touchdown, 3 passing touchdowns. Throws 1 to Austin Hooper,
Yeah.
1 to Demario Douglas. There are lots of ways. I think Naked
For
May
sure.
is going to sim very well. I think he is pretty strong. All right, here we go. The Las Vegas Raiders
Are you
traveling
playing
to
any
play.
members of the Tennessee Titans? We didn't discuss that on
Come on.
franchise.
No, come on. Let's be serious about this. All right, what you choose to do with this game is going to determine if you win money or lose money this week. The Las Vegas Raiders traveling to play at the Kansas City Chiefs in games that Xavier Worthy has played and finished. The Kansas City Chiefs are number 1 in the NFL in EPA per play, number 1 in the NFL in success rate, third in the NFL in rushing EPA, which you certainly would not anticipate looking at them. I looked this up yesterday using the new AI tool on Sumer Sports, Sumer Brain. Kareem Hunt, as a member of the Chiefs, 24-25, is the 6th most successful short yardage rusher in the NFL. More successful in short yardage situations than Jahmyr Gibbs, than David Montgomery, than Josh Allen. It's like actually phenomenal. Rashi Rice obviously returning. Looks like the projection sheet does not have him loaded back up here for the Kansas City Chiefs, but he's 5,600 DraftKings dollars. We've already gotten the reporting from James Palmer that the team is going to, quote, give him a significant workload. My assumption for Rashi is that he sees 8 targets. He catches 6 of them. He gets somewhere between 50 and 87 yards, and he has a 48% implied probability of a touchdown against the Raiders. What say you, Jacob?
14 targets, 12 catches, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns.
I mean, I was trying to be a little bit more cautious here. I would say
what's that? What's that little button with the lock icon that goes right beside players that you could select on Sunday mornings? What's that? Oh, the lock button, is
the
it
lock
called that?
button.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel about Rashee Rice. Now look, if I was responsible, if I was a person who was actually if I was actually interested in giving you the best possible advice, I would tell you that playing like a 42% owned wide receiver who hasn't played this year, who's in his first game off of a significant knee injury, that there's some input volatility there, that maybe
I
his routes
honestly, I
are
really don't
limited,
think there is. I think there is no input volatility.
that maybe he doesn't find the end zone and it's just a 12-point game, all of those sorts of things. What's the Stephen A. Smith? We do not care. we do not care. I'm going to be probably playing him in every single lineup because I want to.
Oh, I'm playing him in every single lineup. He should probably be priced at 7,000, and he's priced at 5,600. Now, is Worthy like an insanely good leverage play? Of course he is. He leads the NFL, or he leads the Chiefs in target share, touch share in the games that he's played. It's pretty clear. I actually, maybe this is a hot take. I think that Reed and Nagy and Mahomes actually think that Worthy's skill set is more important to the offense because he's the one who is multiple. He can operate in the short areas of the field. He can do the end around stuff. He can do the McCole Hardman stuff, but he can also do like the MVS, Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins stuff as well. Rashee, at this stage of his career, I mean, he is the Kelsey replacement, right? Kelsey is his role is going to diminish in the offense. Rashi's role is just going to be massive, and it's going to be super important for the overall success rate of the team. I think Mahomes doubles are in play. I think playing Mahomes and Worthy without Rice in like large field stuff is totally good. There's also this other element. Mahomes kind of loves to beat up on the Raiders. I believe his highest yardage game was okay. I'm trying to remember. He might have had more yards in the Mexico City game, but he had a game against the Raiders where he had 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half. Here's some normie behavior. There's a great clip of Mahomes on the quarterback show talking about how much he likes to beat up on Max Crosby. Crosby's one of the guys that just really gets him amped up and going. And I also think the Chiefs are enjoying having fun playing football. So
Yeah.
I don't. I do not think it's going to be they get up 10 points and it's like Pacheco and Hunt, right? I mean, he had 4 touchdowns on Sunday night against the Lions
No,
when they
they're
were
having
up the
fun.
entire second half. They're having fun. It's not the 2024 Chiefs.
Yeah, I think Rasheed is going to be the guy I want to play. But yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. Like Worthy's going to come in really unowned, and he's a very interesting play. You could definitely play him. I mean, God, if you ever wanted to play Travis Kelce, but I'm not going to do that. I also think you could play Isaiah Pacheco because a lot of people are going to be on the Mahomes Rice thing, and Pacheco just had a 70% snap rate against the Detroit Lions. He got his green zone roll back. He seemingly dusted Kareem Hunt in that spot, and he looked good. So I think he is not that different than what his drafters were thinking that he might be going into the season at this point.
I'm less confident in that spot than you. My leverage play would just be to just play Worthy. I'm less confident in Pacheco holding on to that role in terms of dusting off Kareem Hunt, particularly for the goal line stuff. And Hunt, it's so like the Samaj P. Rhinification of Kareem Hunt has been so funny as they've used him as the third down back just because he's so big. But you would think Pacheco would be a more natural fit for that, but he's not. So there you go. Rashee Rice basically will this is a good question. Will he be the highest owned play of the year thus far in the SPY? Will Rashee Rice be the highest owned play of the year?
What's the highest so far? I have no idea.
I believe Puka was like 56% owned one of these weeks. I'm thinking that's in right
that's
about the range.
Yeah, that seems in the range. I can't wait to be live for the or no, it's not. It's 1 p.m. Eastern game.
It's somehow a 1 p.m. game.
Why is the Chiefs? Okay, that stinks. Well, whatever. At least we'll get to bask in the glow of it together.
Yeah. All right. The Carolina Panthers are traveling up to New Jersey to play against the New York Jets. Got a little bit of trivia for you here. The New York Jets, despite having negative net passing yards last week, find themselves with, I want to say, the 5th highest team total of the slate, I believe, against the Carolina Panthers. Justin Fields is $5,700 DraftKings dollars. Not a person on earth wants to play him in daily fantasy sports contest. Brees is not going to get played. No Garrett Wilson. And then
not according to your Sims, he's going to get played. Look at that, 31%.
Yeah, no chance. That's definitely wrong. What do you think Rico Dowdle should be done with in DFS? Are we playing it? Because the field is going to be scared.
That's a really interesting one. I mean, it's very possible you're paying for a $6,800 running back with a 47% snap share. I mean, I would view it as like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like if he was just to be the what's the absolute ceiling on his workload with Chuba back? He's a 70% workload guy.
Yeah, 70-30. Chuba Hubbard becomes ETN and plays some of the third downs.
Okay. So if it's 70-30, like 6,800 is a fair price for Dowdle, but I wouldn't say that's like an insanely low price. So I think he's priced closer to that ceiling than he is the floor. Like if it's a 50-50, then he should be like a $5,600 running back or something like that. So I'm probably just going to lean away from it because you need him to. It's not like if he just has the big role, you just have already won. Like then he still needs to have another awesome game, and I get he's coming off 2 of those. The Jets defense isn't great. It's a lot better against the run than the Cowboys and the Dolphins defense is. So I'm probably staying away from it, but it's going to be low owned, and it's an interesting chance to get a low owned player coming off of 2 of the best games of the season. So I definitely get the temptation. I don't know if I'll play a single player from this game in any of my lineups.
I'm actually not interested. I'm not interested really. I mean, maybe Brees. because he is projected really strong everywhere because the rush rate is so high, and Isaiah Davis is not factoring in as a rusher. Like Ted McMillan is like probably just a little bit too expensive at 6,400. I don't know. This is a game that like pops up on Red Zone like 4 times. It's, you're barely seeing this game.
I'll note the Panthers, like they started the year as a target for opposing running backs. Maybe that's still true, but they completely shut down Achane on the ground. He had to get there with a receiving touchdown, and they completely shut down Javonte last week. So they've been really, really good against run the last 2 weeks. Maybe they've made a meaningful change. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I believe they're up to like 4th in defensive DVOA or something, which like feels absurd, but it happens. All right. Somehow the Cleveland Browns are favored to win an NFL game. 39.5 point total here. Achane, Waddle. And then, I mean, one of your big questions is, what do you do with Quinshon Judkins as a home favorite against the Miami Dolphins that just gave up 2 back-to-back legendary performances to Rico Dowdle and Kamani Vidal?
If his ownership is under 30, I'm hitting the lock button.
That's right about where it'll be, I bet.
Yeah, like he was my first pick when we did our cage match last night. He just, I'm hopeful that there's like a little bit of spookage coming off a 40% snap rate in the comeback mode game against the Steelers. I don't know if I'm that optimistic about it, but I'm a little bit hopeful. There are other good running backs in that range. We just mentioned Breece Hall. We just mentioned Swift. There's going to be another one at 6,100 in a plum matchup this week. So maybe we get some little bit of it out. But yeah, I really, really want to play Judkins this week. I think his ceiling is massive against the worst or second worst run defense in the NFL. I hope that I can. If it gets completely out of control, I think Jerry Jeudy at $4,400 is a sneaky good play.
Leads the NFL in routes.
He's not going to be played. He's going to have opportunities. I'm surprised that base projection is so low, coming off a 13 target week. But I guess he doesn't get the same love that Jacoby Myers gets, despite not converting on his opportunities any week. So he'd be a guy that I'd be somewhat interested in. And then we'll see what happens with David Njoku, if he's going to play or not. But if not, I assume that the Fannin bet is going to be very highly owned, and fair enough. So if it ends up being a lot of ownership on Judkins, a lot of ownership on Fannin, I'm just going to note that I think Jerry Jeudy is gross but interesting. The Miami side is tough. Cleveland's defense is pretty darn good. I think Waddle and Achane are fine. I'll be monitoring ownership and seeing where if I want to play them or not.
I mean, I would assume that this is the only time in the history of daily fantasy sports that we have had a situation where the guy who literally leads the NFL in routes and had 13 targets the week before has a great defensive matchup, is priced below 5,000, and no one wants to play him. I truly would assume that those confluence of things have never happened before in the history of salary cap DFS on DraftKings, and also the first time in history I've said, yeah, I'm good. Jerry Jeudy, what's the point? I theoretically like the plan-in, but also he's like not free at 3,900. Like it's not like he can just slot into any. I guess maybe we should have mentioned Michael Mayer, who had a 30% target share last week. Yeah. I mean, like I might prefer $3,500 Mayer to $3,900 Fannin, because I'm quite certain that Mayer's like a better player than Fannin. I know Michael Mayer did not lead all of college football in receiving at any point, but he is I think a pretty strong player. All right, your team, Indiana Jones and the Indianapolis Colts against the Los Angeles Chargers in LA. 1.5 point favorites, 48 point total. Probably no Josh Downs this week. Popped up late with a concussion. Maybe we'll play Michael Pittman Jr. Sounds like Quentin Johnston is going to be back for the Los Angeles footballing Chargers. Jonathan Taylor, very expensive at $8,800. Daniel Jones, again, very attractive play at $6,000 DraftKings dollars. And Arande Gadsden, 3,300. What do you got on this game for me?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on this game. sucks that Josh Downs is not going to be available, especially from like a real life Colts fan perspective. But for fantasy, I think this game is going to. I think it's going to go over the total. The Colts offense looked good against everyone all year. That included in a very tough matchup versus the Broncos. That included, for the most part, a tough matchup versus the Rams. They just took 2 touchdowns off the board with penalties and stupidity. So I think they're going to be able to put up points in any spot. And I think the Chargers are going to obliterate the Colts on the other side of the ball. I mean, they're down their top 5 cornerbacks since the preseason. I'll note that Kenny Moore might play this week, but he would be the only guy with any shot. Charvarius Ward concussed last week pregame. Thanks, Drew Ogletree, for running into him on the sideline. He's not going to play this week, and I don't think Jalen Jones has any chance. So it's going to be rough in the secondary, and the only spot that they might be able to defend is the slot. So that makes me particularly interested in Quentin Johnston coming off of the injury. He's going to be my priority play in this game, where he's just going to get to go against literally like UDFA waiver level corners who were giving it up to Zay Jones all of last week. On the Colts side of things, yeah, I mean, we're going to see things condense probably on Michael Pittman Jr. and Tyler Warren without Josh Downs in the mix. I don't like Josh Downs' specific role tends to be a lot of those like choice routes on third downs. I don't know if anyone, is like the obvious fit, or if they just do a different thing schematically on those types of plays, but it's not Alec Pierce. It's not E.D. Mitchell, who was a healthy and active last week. It's not Ashton Doolin. So it's going to have to be Pittman. It's going to have to be Warren that are taking those middle field route concepts. So I'm probably going to be doing this mostly from Herbert and QJ. And if you want to play a second Charger, you can. And then a bring back of Warren or Pittman or both will be a lot of my lineups. Vidal is interesting coming off of the nice week last week. I'll let you chat about him more in your thoughts. Although I just think they're going to have a really, really high pass rate in this game, given the matchup, given what they've already done this season. I probably prefer playing it through Herbert and the wide receivers.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So Vidal, I mean, I think that he answered the question that we wanted from him, which is, if given the opportunity, can you play well? Because he played fine as a receiver last year, but was not a particularly good rusher. Now, it was against the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are almost historically bad in terms of a rushing defense, which is why Judkins is going to be so owned. But I mean, is Kamani Vidal as good as Amarian Hampton? Probably not. But is he a $5,500 running back for a team playing in a dome with a good quarterback? And the high PROE normally would be used as a reason not to play running back. Like, you look at the Chiefs and you're like, oh, they're PROE. They lead the NFL. Why would you ever want to play him? And then with the Chargers, you're like, I don't know, man. The offensive line is so bad. Maybe I would prefer the PROE to be good. Like, I believe Hampton, the last game before he got injured, what do you have, 8 receptions in the game that he got injured in? So it's like, okay, so Vidal kind of has this like PPR scam role where he also has, I don't know, a 47% chance of scoring a goal line touchdown. To me, and he's not going to get played because projection systems will still middle it to some degree. Between him and Haskins, they'll give Haskins, some percentage. I mean, look, all due respect to Hassan Haskins, a more George Halani, Kenny McIntosh ass runner there has never been in the history of the National Football League. This is classic NFL. You keep the guy on the practice squad, or you keep him as the healthy scratch because he can't play special teams, and then you elevate him and you play him ahead of your running back 3, who's like basically a bum, which is what Hassan Haskins is. I think there's like a non-zero chance. I don't know if the Chargers are on the main slate next week, but that he gets like $1,000 price hike because he has a 6 reception game and gets 100 combo yards again. And the Colts run defense is fine, but you're not like, oh, I'm so scared of the Colts run defense. And like, the Chargers can easily win this game as a home favorite. Don't think I'd bet on it, but I'm pretty into Vidal as a play.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And the Colts defense, their linebackers can't cover anybody. So if you get him going on angle routes and stuff, that's A-okay. I'll note on Gadsden quick. I love the matchup. Like, again, this whole defense is in tatters right now with these injuries, and their linebackers in particular are really weak in coverage. So I think you want to play tight ends against them generally. But I thought he really benefited from QJ being out. If you look at sort of what they did last week, they played Harris actually the most snaps of any of their wide receivers, but they had an interesting rotation where they still played a ton of 12 personnel, and they just kind of rotated which of the other two wide receivers were there. And that's, I think, borderline necessary for Gadsden, just because he's so undersized. He really is going to struggle if you're asking him to be the pure 11 personnel tight end outside of very obvious passing situations. I don't know if they're going to be able to find as many 12 personnel snaps with Quentin Johnston back in the lineup, especially with Trey Harris getting a lot of buzz. So I could just see his route rate being more diminished coming off of last week than maybe you'd think. Whereas you'd think just QJ steps in for Trey Harris. I think it's fine. He's what, 3,300, something like that. It's really cheap, I think, isn't he? I don't have it in front of me.
3,300,
Yeah,
and
so,
Harbaugh gave him the game ball last week. Said Trey Harris earned the game ball.
Yeah. So if you want to play, they're both 3,300. Yeah, I'm not doing Harris QJ back, but I was talking about Gadsden. If you want to play Gadsden, he fills tight end, and if you're already stacking Herbert, then sure. I wouldn't necessarily mess with him as the one-off just because of that concern about. I think with QJ coming back, it does hurt the route rate more than you might think.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right. I'm pretty into Gadsden as well here. Like I certainly thought there was a chance that Will Dissly would come back and then Gadsden would just be a backup again. You really do actually, I think, have to credit Harbaugh and Roman. We were obviously very frustrated with them last year because they wouldn't play Vidal over Gus Edwards. But really, other than that personnel decision, they have been like, yeah, the best guys are going to play. So I think that is pretty strong for them there. All right. Old Bo Nix plays against New Bo Nix. The New York Football Giants are traveling to play at Mile High against the Denver Broncos. I don't really think anyone is particularly playable in this game. Didn't think I'd ever see $5,400 Wan'Dale Robinson. Definitely never thought I'd see $6,500 Cam Skattebo. Do you have anything on this game, Jacob?
Yeah, people love Jackson Dart, but I guess the projections don't. So I was hoping that maybe I could find ways to kind of lean into my take for this game, which is that the Broncos defense is going to annihilate the Giants, and make some of the more aggressive Jackson Dart tweets look a little bit premature. But I don't think there's anything to lean into because that seems to be what the projections are saying is going to happen. So I don't know if I'll play anyone in this game. My view, this slate kind of stinks. There's no like very obvious plays outside of, I guess, Rashee Rice. And so I'm probably just going to lean into some pretty big game stacks in most of my lineups, largely the Chargers Colts game and one other game. And I don't know how much room there's going to be for one-offs at a Giants Broncos game for my particular lineups. I guess if I was to play someone in this game, it would probably be Courtland Sutton. He's traditionally better against man coverage than zone coverage. The Giants play man coverage at one of the highest rates in the league. I think he's an interesting play who will go under the radar, but I don't know if I'll actually get there.
I'm not hip. This is not even really a daily fantasy thing, but do you think there's any chance of a RJ Harvey breakout here just due to like scoreline effects or
No.
are we kind of putting Harvey on the discard pile?
I mean, if they run enough plays and they have enough carries, then yes. Because I mean, kind of what they've done with their running back situation is that like J.K. Dobbins is going to get between 35 to 40 snaps, and on those he's going to get between 15 to 18 carries. And then like Harvey is definitely going to get a few early down targets. And if there happens to be 30 running back carries available in a game, he'll get 10 to 12 of those as well, kind of alongside J.K. Dobbins. But it's very much like the minimum thresholds is RJ Harvey gets 3 to 4 targets and J.K. Dobbins gets 15 to 18 carries. And anything on top of that is based on how long the Broncos kind of possess the ball. This kind of like seems to be how they're operating. So I probably wouldn't bet on it, but it'd be nice to see. I mean, he's going to get some targets. So if you need a flex, he is like playable, but it's weak for sure.
Yeah. All right, man. Game of the week. We I guess we really have to think through what is going to happen here. The total actually has even moved even higher to 55 as the total for the Washington Commanders traveling to play at the Dallas Cowboys. No one in this game is even particularly expensive. It sounds like CeeDee Lamb maybe is trending towards playing. What do you got for me on Commanders Cowboys?
Well, this game is fascinating because it has this massive, massive total. But then you have all these question marks about the weapons, right? Very easy to think I'm going to stack up Dak or I'm going to stack up Jaden. On the Dallas side, you have this odd dynamic where CD is coming back, but it's not like the most enticing thing in the universe to play a $7,600 CD Lamb in his first game off a high ankle. You're not really getting any discount on CD Lamb there, and you have injury concerns. But then Pickens and Ferguson are priced like Lamb's not playing at $7,300 and $5,000 respectively. So if you want to stack this game, I know on the Dallas side, it kind of requires an uncomfortable click, with the exception of Javonte, who is totally fine at 6,700. And then on the Washington side, again, you have this issue where, Debo, 6,200, and he's going to play, but battling through injuries. And McLaurin is likely coming back. And do you want to play McLaurin off injury? Maybe not. Do you want to play Debo and Ertz at McLaurin's been out prices? Maybe not. So all of the prices on the weapons are like a little bit inflated because of the double wide receiver ones coming back from injury, and or you're playing a wide receiver coming back off of an injury. So for a really, really high projecting game, it's a little bit more uncomfortable, I think, to get into stacking it than you might initially think. I'm curious for your thoughts.
I don't think it should be that hard, assuming like a decent amount of value is available, which I think there probably is. Because Daniels at 6,900, there's been, there's been slates where Lamar Jackson was 8,000 and chalk. Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt at $6,100 is not all that expensive. The two Cowboys receivers, Pickens and Lamb, are particularly expensive, and they make that a little bit harder of a fit. But Ferguson at 5,500 is fine. Debo at 6,200 might just be
Ferguson
the
at 5,500 fine with Lamb back? That does not seem fine to me.
If you assume that this game goes over the total, like if you assume that this is kind of a back and forth affair where Dak drops back 47 times or something, then definitely. I mean, his overall target share will be lower, and it will have to be made up by. It will have to be an efficient game for Jake Ferguson. It will not be a. Did he have like 13 targets the other day? Like that, I think he's like second in the NFL in receptions or something like that. Like it's definitely not going to be that. I think probably the best way to play this game is Dak with Lamb and Debo Samuel as your correlated piece. I'm not into McLaurin coming off the injury, really. I'm not into $3,800 Ertz. I'm not really into Luke McCaffrey or Chris Moore or McNichols. Tolbert is out there for like every snap, but it's just like an all-time non-target earner. Maybe the more appropriate way to handle these pieces is you even ignore the quarterbacks and you just say every lineup that I'm going to make is going to have a Washington Commander or a Dallas Cowboy, but I'm not necessarily going to do the game stacks. But I do think the total for this game is so high and the quality of these defenses is so low that it's really hard for me to imagine like winning lineups not having one of the guys in this game.
Well, I think I kind of teased what my plan is. We'll see what ownership says on Sunday morning because my plans are always subject to change. But my initial gut feel is I stack the Colts Chargers game, which I think is going to be a double high pass rate game through the air. And then I play the majority of my ownership in this game through the running backs. Because Javonte is the one guy on Dallas who I would say is not overpriced because CD I don't think really affects him that much. And then I'm really into playing Bill against the Cowboys.
Playing Bill.
I could see his ownership being not low, but like slightly depressed because people are weirdly blaming him for a fumble that he never had possession of because Jaden like dropped the ball on the snap. So I could not be more into Bill, and I'm very into Javonte as well. And I think that that's the most price efficient path to this game. So I'm probably going to be playing one of the two running backs in this game in every single lineup, and I would be even open to playing both. And then I'm gonna play more of my like quarterback wide receiver game stacks through Justin Herbert and Daniel Jones. But I'm definitely open minded to playing some CD stuff. I'm really curious what Pickens ownership winds up being because like that price of $7,300 is scary. But his upside is so high that I guess I'm way more interested in playing an overpriced George Pickens than an overpriced Jake Ferguson because at least Pickens can get an 80-yard touchdown.
I mean, that is so self-evident, right? Like Pickens can be efficient. It's much hard. Like Ferguson's efficiency would have to be like 3-yard touchdowns or 17-yard touchdowns. Pickens can be, oh, well, I only got 4 targets, but 2 of them were 70-yard slant touchdowns. And I actually outscored CeeDee Lamb despite seeing, 50% fewer targets or something like that. So yeah, I'm completely with you there. I think that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt will be way less owned than this. I do not think he will see double-digit ownership at
No,
all.
because people are going to play Jenkins more than him for sure. They're going to play Javonte more than him. They might play Brees more than him. They might even play Swift. Probably not more than him, but they might. So, yeah, I think he comes in 10 to 15. And I'm going to be all over that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really all I got in this game. I don't think it's particularly sound game theory to fade anyone or fade this game on purpose. My guess is if you use a sim based process, you're going to get a lot of players from this game because there is no substitute for a good projection. Man, I really wish that this game was not in the Shipcast window. The final game of the main slate, the Green Bay Packers traveling to play at the Arizona Cardinals. Sounds like we're probably going to have Jacoby Brissett for another week. Kyler Murray. You never like hearing the word Liz.
Big upgrade for the Cardinals.
I'm not as certain. I'm not as certain about that. Although it did appear that way last week. So you have $7,800 Jacobs. There's a guy with a 30-point ceiling who's going to be unowned this week. I think that I'm done telling myself stories about the Packers throwing the ball. I think last week was definitive proof it's not happening. They're not interested. There is no get Jordan Love going. They will be happy to lose their eventual playoff game with 10 points because they didn't practice the forward pass in the regular season. And that's just how she goes.
Yeah. Just really tough to collect a Packers receiver. I mean, like Golden is interesting because of the downfield role. So he's like in the pool. I don't know if he's going to be a guy I prioritize. I'll note Marvin Harrison got in a limited practice on Wednesday. So he's just like, he's the only guy I can recall who didn't miss a week with a concussion previously, and he might do it again. He's just like a really quick healer from concussions, I guess. I don't know what's up with that, but he'll be probably active. So I guess you could play him. I don't know if I will. I don't think I'll get to McBride, but just because if I'm spending up at tight end this week, I'm probably going to be more inclined to play Tyler Warren in those tight end spend up lineups. So, but I think he's fine. And I love what you mentioned with Josh Jacobs. He's going to be, I bet, underplayed this week as there's a lot of interesting running backs at 6K, and guys are going to want to spend up on the quarterbacks, the wide receivers in that Dallas game. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of flex players, so you've got JT, A-Chain, Brees, Jacobs, Barkley, Javonte. I mean, he might be the lowest owned of this whole. Well, he'll be less owned. He'll be less owned than Barkley, and that's about it. He really will not get played at all. All right, our weekly DraftKings Millionaire Maker lineup build. Reminder: if you comment down below and we win, you're going to be eligible for a drawing for 10,000 American dollars. Jacob, you get to make our first selection. I wonder where you'll be going.
All right. My gold star play this week, pending ownership. Who knows where he comes in? Maybe it gets too high, but this is both a reverse jinx against my team and all of my best ball teams. Give me Quentin Johnston.
That is quite the gold star play, and just what a difference, man! What a difference a year makes for QJ. You know what? I'm gonna go my gold star play, just based on the leverage that I think that he provides, and the fact that I think he's getting healthier from the ankle injury. I really mean this. I think we are gonna see a Xavier Worthy gets the 100-yard bonus in the regular
Well,
season for the first time this week. We're taking
well,
X marks the spot.
well, so much for this lineup. Um, I'll take Sir Tyler Warren at tight end.
You know what's funny? I literally, Jacob, when I was making the thumbnail for this, I knew that you were gonna put Tyler Warren in this lineup, and I was just like, yeah, it's very self-evident. Okay, so here's the question that we have in this lineup: do we want to play Rice and Worthy together with Mahomes, or would we rather just play Daniel Jones?
I'll leave that to you. Your pick. I'll follow your lead.
You don't even say. Well, you know what? You actually do save a reasonable amount, so I'm gonna take Mr. Dimes.
All right. I will select because I think we could double stack this. We don't have to. I'll take Bill Krosky Merritt.
God, this lineup. I mean, are they already going to give us the $1 million? Bill Krosky Merritt, and then I'm going to take the free square of the week with Rashi
Okay.
Rice. And you might be thinking, God, all these guys in this lineup are so good. These guys are all going to score billion points. We still have $15,000 remaining. And there actually is a great cheap defense this week, depending on your perspective.
Yeah,
You can
Panthers.
take the Panthers. You can take the Giants. I know that doesn't
Yeah, I
vibe
like the
exactly.
Giants. No, I like the
But
Giants.
we'll put the Panthers in there for now, which leaves us
All
with
right.
12.6K for 2 slots.
I will take Quinshawn Judkins.
My God, I mean, the only worry with this lineup is it might be duped because someone might be watching this program and say, I just want to play
I think
this
the double
team.
Chiefs no Mahomes, I think, is going to protect you a little bit from the cumulative ownership.
All right, so our option now is we can play Brees against the Panthers defense. Ooh, you know what? We didn't really talk about him much. I actually think Jordan Mason is pretty strong. If we think that the Eagles defense continues to be the Eagles defense, I looked this up the other day, they're bottom 5 in the NFL in expected points allowed against the run, which just means like they're getting gashed against the
Yeah.
run in a way they don't want to be. So I feel pretty I actually think Jordan Mason is very sneaky. If you
Yeah, he's
wanted
fun.
to
He'll be
do,
underplayed.
yeah, if you wanted to do the Mahomes version of this, it would be Mahomes and Vidal. So do
Yeah.
whatever you want with that. I'm gonna plug Jordan Mason and I'm gonna see if there's a defense that I care about in a meaningful way.
Doesn't look like it.
No, not really. All right, there you go. Daniel Jones, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Quinshawn Judkins, Quentin Johnston, Xavier Worthy, Rashi Rice,
We
Tyler
should do the
Warren.
Vikings D with Jordan Mason.
You're right. You're right. Poor Jalen Hurts, man. All right, done, submitted. Jacob, what do you have for the people this week?
Nothing that's that different than the usual. We got the Sunday drive up. We're gonna have the stock watch up tomorrow or Saturday morning. You can find me on the Shipcast on Sunday. You can find my waiver stuff already up on Underdog. And I'll be with you here next week.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll be back with all of you guys tomorrow. Later.